Welcome to the Travelman Podcast. I'm your host, Ben, and if you're joining me for the first time, then I say hello and thank you. And if you're a returning listener, then I say thanks for listening. On today's awesome episode, I'll be chatting to Chris Torres, who runs the company tourism marketing agency. He's an expert in travel marketing and is well versed on the current COVID-19 situation, which has ravaged the world's tourism industry. It's a real bummer. I had a great chat with Chris, though, not only about how the tourism industry is coping, but how we will hopefully get through it and we will be traveling again soon. At the end of the podcast, he recalled a really sweet story about his time in Japan, so be sure to listen to the end. And also just letting you know that the information we were talking about re-COVID-19 was current as of May 11th. A heap has changed since then when I spoke to Chris, so please take that in mind. Take that in mind? Is that even a thing? Take it into account. Yeah, that's the one. So sit back and enjoy the podcast. Chris Torres, thank you very much for joining me, mate. And how's the weather going there? Are you in Glasgow, Scotland?
That's correct. Yes. No. Thanks for having me. So yes, in Glasgow, Scotland. It's a very unusual, glorious day outside for Scotland. Usually has a lot of rain, but it's actually been the past couple of weeks. It's actually been absolutely beautiful, and it makes you wonder if, with the lockdowns and things like that are happening just now, if the amount of sort of less traffic that's happening and less pollution that's happening, if that's actually having an effect with our weather, because it's been beautiful.
Yeah, well, it probably has made an impact. I guess less people traveling, less planes in the sky, less cars on the road. So you're the director of the tourism marketing agency, and you guys specialize in digital tourism in the travel industry. So is that to help travel businesses expand their brand and reach and so forth?
Yeah, for sure. So we predominantly help tour operators and activity providers market their business online to try and give them more direct traffic and more direct bookings. So that's our main focus, and that's how we try to help.
Okay. That sounds pretty interesting. And so how have you guys found COVID-19 has impacted the industry, the travel industry? Have you felt that it's impacted different parts?
No, I think this has impacted the world. It's impacted at such a global scale. Every part of travel has been affected. Every part of life has been affected. I made in a previous webinar as well, and I said, this is affecting everyone from the corporate guy who makes millions of pounds right down to the guy selling hot dogs in a corner stand somewhere in New York. So this has had such a global impact. And the only other analogy I can think of when it comes to this is the only other thing that would impact the world on such a global scale would be another world war. No, this is how big an impact COVID is having on us just now. It's affecting every single walk of life. So yeah, travel has been massively affected no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, it's so scary. Do you see it like stretching out, or do you feel that there is an end point? There is a light at the end of the tunnel?
It depends on which light you follow. So what I would say is short term, there is a little bit of light depending on the various destinations you're in, but I would say the light is more for domestic and local travel. I honestly believe, and going by what various governments are saying, that for the next 12 months, international travel is going to be, there isn't going to be much of it, put it that way. And I think that every business out there needs to start focusing on the domestic and local markets for the next 12 months. If it happens sooner, great. It means I see that as a bonus, but plan for at least 12 months of domestic travel instead.
Yeah, so you don't think any of us will be able to pretty much leave our countries for a whole year?
Yeah, I believe so. No, it may ease up during that year, but I believe that there will have to be a vaccine in place before people are properly able to travel again. And not just that, no, people maybe not having the money to do so. We don't know which state the airlines are going to be in. No, we've already got some going into administration and various other things happening all over the world. So I think it's going to be at least 12 months before we properly see international travel pick up again. In fact, the stats show that for the travel industry to get back to pre-COVID levels, sort of 2019 levels, it won't happen until at least 2023. So we're in this for the long haul.
Wow, 2023.
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a lot of people that think they'll be traveling overseas like it's 2018 next year. I believe people probably don't want to wait 3 years, but I guess if they have to, they have to.
Yeah, I think there will be travel during that time, but it just won't happen as readily as it has been.
Gotcha.
There's just too many factors in play. There's just far too many factors in play. Though we never know. No one has a crystal ball. It may happen a lot sooner. But we have to plan for that length of period before we think that things are going to kick off again. Just too many factors in place, unfortunately, at the moment.
Fair you were talking about vaccines. Do you think that's one of the measures that the travel industry probably has to employ during this COVID-19 and the travel bans?
Yeah, I think that's certainly for a lot of countries. I think that will certainly be the case. No, the UK government here has already said on, I think it was yesterday, our MP put out a statement saying that anyone flying into the country will now, they're looking to actually have them on to 14-day quarantine as well. So that's just happening now, near the halfway through the crisis that we're going through just now here in the UK, or towards the end. So people will be put off by that to travel abroad just because they'll have to go through extra checks. They have to be in quarantine for 14 days, etc. So it's going to be a challenging time for the travel industry, that's for sure.
Yeah, tell me about it. Do you think there's certain aspects of the travel industry that might not ever come back?
No, the thing about travel is I think most areas will come back. Things that are maybe going to be mostly harmed at the moment is things like cruises. Cruise is almost a bad word at the moment in terms of the travel industry, in terms of people's perceptions. But at the end of the day, it's the consumers who will determine this. People will want to travel again. They will want to explore, and as soon as they are able to, people will do it. I just think that things like flights, for example, may get a little bit more expensive. Because there's more demand, as always, when there's more demand and less airlines going about, prices will increase. So you might find that flights may go back to being that slightly more exclusive. People won't be able to fly abroad for $60 or €60 or whatever that would be again, and things like that. I think that may change going forward, but time will tell.
Yeah. Well, traveling around Europe's always been quite cost effective, hasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has been. With Ryanair and EasyJet, etc., that has been relatively cheap to fly anywhere. In fact, it's cheaper for me to fly from Scotland to fly to Barcelona than it is to travel within the UK itself. So that just shows you how crazy things are. So that may continue. We just don't know, but I can see prices increasing a little just to compensate for all the extra checks and everything else that people will have to go through. There's already talk about flights, taking out the middle seat so people are not sitting so close together. I just don't see how effective that would be, because we're still all breathing the same air and we still have to line in queues to get into flights. So it just seems a bit silly to do that, to be honest. So, but yeah, there's various things that people are looking at, and as we say, so we'll see what happens over the next coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I've seen some photos online of people traveling and they got face masks and a shield on, and then but they're all sitting next to each other. They've just got a little mask on and a shield. Or there was some other pictures I saw, and they've created some type of plastic compartment nearly for flying. But I think I think it's a fake picture, but they're saying this is what could happen. Have little compartments, but then the airlines need to make money, and I think adding all that extra plastic and stuff, it's going to add weight to the airline, and then hence less people will probably be able to be on the plane, just like you said about removing a seat. And then obviously then the tickets will go up in price. So yeah, it's not going to be great if that happens like that.
No, but like we say, that it may or may not happen. No one has a crystal ball. There's all these people coming out with different theories of what may happen, but at the end of the day, it's international travel will pick back up again. People will want to travel again. It's not going to stop people's appetite to travel. It'll just be done possibly in a slightly different way, or it may take a little bit longer to get there until there's vaccines in place and everything else. But we shall see soon enough.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. So what measures have you seen the travel industry employ during these times that have been different, from previous?
Yeah, they've been different from different destinations. No, up until now, the UK, obviously, pretty much, you couldn't travel anywhere with the lockdown, so you're not allowed to travel abroad, etc. So, but it's only the only measures, I can only speak for my own country, so the only measures I've seen so far that are about to be put in place is anyone flying in is going to have to go through the 14-day quarantine. And I imagine that will be the same for a lot of other destinations for us to fly out to as well. Good thing is we get things like Germany opening up, etc., and they're starting to allow people to walk within their own destinations and travel again within their own destination. But for international visitors, it's going to be a lot harder for the foreseeable future with all these different guidelines and things that you have to adhere to. And I'm sure, as everyone else, we all don't like going through airports and going through the checkout and having to go through security. That's going to take even longer as well, and I'm sure they'll add on extra checks to check people's temperature and everything else now, etc. So it's going to get a lot longer. you probably have to get to the airport rather than 2 hours before, or 3 or 4 hours before, just to get through all the checks. So
yeah, well, that's funny you mentioned that, because I was going to talk about how the travel industry, or more so travel, will change for people once we can fly around the globe. I think they will implement a lot of things like that, the heat sensors, like you mentioned, and whatever other measures they can put in place to make sure flying is safer for all of us, and also that we're not going to spread a toxic virus around. But yeah,
for sure.
Who knows? I mean, there might be another virus like this that happens again.
No, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, and that's what we're saying. I'm advising a lot of our customers, etc., is focus on the domestic market. The domestic market is huge for a lot of destinations. So it's for businesses who rely heavily on international travel, if they haven't done so already, they need to start thinking about domestic travel. What products can they create for that? Because the domestic travel is certainly going to be the biggest market going forward for the next 12 months.
Yeah, look, I can see Australia's domestic market just going gangbusters. There is so much of Australia that I think Australians, for instance, have not seen yet, because they'd rather just fly to Bali or Thailand or somewhere like that for 14 nights or whatever it is to get their fun in the sun. I would hope that Australian prices, because Australian prices are always quite a bit higher than obviously Southeast Asian prices for resorts and hotels and so forth. So I hope that means it gets a bit more competitive in Australia, and then hopefully people travel more in Australia, and then the prices drop a little bit. So I could see that as a good thing coming out of this.
Yeah, if anything, local businesses, local travel, that should all increase and help the local economy as a whole. I was speaking to someone from Australia a couple of weeks back. I don't know if this is still the situation, but they were talking about how the country isn't going to open up to international travel probably for at least 12 months, and the only country they may open up to is New Zealand, and doing some sort of traveling between the two destinations. So again, that's at least going to open up another market for anyone in Australia and for New Zealand, vice versa. So if that does happen, great. At least you'll have a little bit of traveling going in between the two destinations. But in terms of international travel, from what I've been told, that may not happen for at least 12 months.
Okay, yeah, I've heard something similar about New Zealand. I think we will be able to fly in between New Zealand. There's a stat that says that there's more New Zealanders that live in Australia than there are in New Zealand.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. And there's also more sheep in New Zealand than there are people. And there's a lot of other jokes that follow on to those too. But I won't go into them today.
Yeah.
Maybe offline I'll tell you some New Zealand sheep jokes.
We have them in Scotland as well.
Oh, you got plenty of sheep in Scotland. A lot of jokes too.
Oh, yes, for sure. Yeah, that's for sure.
Oh, look, Scotland is one place in the world I really want to go to because I've been to New Zealand, and I do believe that the rolling hills of New Zealand would be so similar to Scotland.
I have heard that, yes. I've heard New Zealand is just a larger version of Scotland in that sort of sense. It's a beautiful place to be. It's where I'm situated. It's great. I'm in more of an urban area, but 20 minutes, 30-minute drive outside, you're in the middle of lochs and countryside and everything else. It's a beautiful place to be in.
Yeah, it's so nice. Yeah, I've got to try and make it there, but obviously not this year. Maybe not next year. Yes. Maybe the year after.
We're just hoping it happens sooner, God. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think, when we were talking before, how you thought maybe things won't go back to normal till about 2023? So is this period of time, do you think, this last couple of months, say, do you feel that that's similar to what happened in 9/11? Or did we recover a lot quicker after that?
The difference between 9/11 is, and this is not to belittle what happened. What happened was absolutely terrible, but no, that basically affected, on the whole, it affected New York and America to the whole country to a certain extent. But they recovered quickly because it was, in terms of scale compared to what's happening now, it was a much smaller scale. Whereas now, no. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. This is affecting everything and everyone. Pretty much everyone is in lockdown still. Yes, a couple of destinations are starting to open up, but pretty much everyone is in lockdown. So there's been, like I say, at the start, there's the only other thing that would have this much of effect would be a world war going on. This is how bad it is for various economies. This is how bad it is just for life in general. So it'll take longer than it would do compared to 9/11. 9/11 was a terrible event. We're still thinking and talking about that now, still seeing the repercussions of that now with how we're having to go through airports now and everything else still. But we recovered quickly. This will just take longer because it's had such a global impact, not just on travel, but on people's livelihoods, people's jobs. There'll be larger unemployment factors to take into consideration. So all that will just have a knock-on effect onto everything. And unfortunately, travel is ultimately a luxury item, especially if you're traveling abroad. So
absolutely,
as all luxury items are, they tend to be put to the back burner when life gets in the way. So
did you ever envisage this happening, Chris?
No, I don't think anyone did. It's why it's so unprecedented. We
weren't prepared.
If anything, there's always been we weren't prepared. A lot of countries weren't prepared. Some countries were better prepared than others. New Zealand have been, from the press over here, New Zealand have been one of the best ones in terms of how they've handled the whole situation. A couple of other destinations have been amazing as well. Other countries just haven't been prepared for it. There'll always be some sort of crisis around the corner, whether it's a 9/11, a terrorist attack, or a volcano erupting in Iceland again, or something like that affects travel. But there's been nothing to this scale, nothing that's affected the world at such a global scale. So, if anything, that there will be, and this is what part of what the advice that I give a lot of my customers and just the industry in general is, every business should have some sort of crisis management plan in place. So there will be another crisis going forward, whether it's this coming back or whether it's something else. Always have a plan in place if the worst was to happen, and at least it saves you panicking when something like this does happen again. At least you've got that plan in place. You've got something to action, and it just helps you sort of ease your mind a little, and knowing that you have this plan in place and something that will hopefully help you in your business going forward, and etc. So just always make sure you have that crisis management plan in place.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to be much better prepared for something like this next time. And I think it's got to be at the top of the agenda with travel. For instance, they've got to have something in place which obviously, protects us. For sure.
Now, there have to be there's a good chance Corona might come back. Who's to say there's not going to be some other virus that springs from this and something else that comes into play?
But yeah, I think I was going to talk about people not being able to get compensation for plane tickets, for cruises, for accommodation. There's been a lot of stories I've heard of people not being able to get their money back, and luckily, I think I got every cent back, bar the flight to Bali, which I was going to go to about 3 weeks ago. But I've got an extension. I got a 1-year voucher for $2,500, and I can use that to fly anywhere. So I did really well in that sense. And then, yeah,
you did. No, unfortunately, a lot of people have lost money out of this. I think, if anything, once all this is over, there will no doubt be repercussions and lawsuits flying everywhere for various things happening. No, I had my own experience in this. That I know I was going to, just before the lockdowns happened in the UK, I was going to fly to Berlin for an event called Arrival. It was a big tourism event. It's focusing on tours and activities. I was actually speaking at it, so I was flying over there, and 2 days before I was meant to fly out, the event got cancelled by the German authorities because they didn't want anyone or anything happening with large groups. But what happened was, and I understand that everyone runs a business. It's hard for them to lose money, etc. But the hotel we were staying in, where the event was actually being held, decided that because the cancellation didn't happen within their 7-day cancellation policy, they decided that every single guest who was in that hotel, they took the money from them, including the each day that they were staying. So they took the full amount. Which I thought was absolutely shocking. I expected to lose a deposit. Don't get me wrong. Again, happy to take the deposit. That's something I expect. But to take the money from people who weren't even staying there for days because their own government said it wasn't allowed to happen, that has damaged their brand in a massive way. There are 600 people going to that hotel purely for that event, all within tourism. They're never going to go back to that hotel again. So there's a way of doing this type of thing. Businesses need to keep money. They need to make money to survive. I get that, but there is a way of keeping your customer. You got the voucher. That could have been something that they could have done to say, okay, we can't take but here's a voucher. So when you do come back, we hope we'll welcome you with open arms. But they decided not to do any of that. It was basically, nope, this is our policy, and we're taking the money. So they have had a bit of a backlash from that, and any brand doing that type of thing, it's only going to damage your brand. I spoke to a tour operator the other day, talking about cancelling or postponing, and I said to them, okay, right, if and this is more so for like a multi-day tour company. For day tours, it's a little bit harder because people tend to buy in destination or whatever. But for a multi-day tour company where someone is buying a product in advance of them getting to that destination, they'll ask them to postpone, even if it means you adding extra incentives onto that product. If it means giving them extras, if it means you are literally only breaking even on a product, I would rather do that to keep that customer than not, because that customer could then leave a really good review. That customer could come back, could be repeat business. They can also recommend you on to a friend. So that, by postponing and adding extra value, even if it is just breaking even, could in future give more value to your business going forward in the future. So I would always do everything to try and keep that customer. But I know that's not going to be easy for some businesses, but there is a way of doing these type of things, and that hotel, unfortunately, didn't do it in the right way.
I so can't believe that. I mean, I believe you, but I just can't believe that they would not give money back. It's not. I feel like it's not theirs to keep.
It's not.
really
No one
annoying.
stayed in the hotels. Their own government said no, we're not allowed large groups. So they didn't handle that whole situation very well.
Were they a big part of a big hotel chain group?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Do you want to call them out today, Chris?
Well, the hotel was called Vienna. I don't know which part of the group it was, but the hotel is called Vienna, I think it was, or something like that. Along those
In Berlin.
So in Berlin, yeah. If you look at where Arrival Berlin was meant to be, you'll soon find out who the hotel was. So.
Okay. So, listener, you've heard it now. Don't go to that hotel. So just take your money and run.
Wouldn't trust them.
Oh, God, that's funny. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's actually not funny. It's really annoying. Oh, my God.
It is, yeah. And like I say, I know they're a business, so people need to make money. People need to make money. People need to make sure their business survives. I get that, but they just never went round it the right way.
Yeah. Well, I have an interesting question for you. It's in regards to Italy. So I'm just looking at my notes at the moment, okay. Chris. Now, considering Italy's I think they've had the most viruses or most deaths. Is that right in Europe, bar the UK?
Yes, now that the UK technically is not in Europe, yes, they can now say.
Oh, that's right.
It's what annoys me about the press over here. It's what annoys me about the press over here. It's like they start saying, "Oh, Italy's the worst in the EU." No, it would have been the UK if we were still technically in the EU. So it's just it's a moot point. But no, the UK is actually the worst at the moment.
Okay, so all right, fair enough. Well. This question then anyway I'll continue on with the question. So
no, it's still like a valid question to ask, because like I say, Italy is in the EU, UK technically isn't. So yeah, it's still a valid question.
All right, so the question is, considering how Italy was so damaged, I guess damaged by the coronavirus, they had a lot of deaths. So, for instance, how could you sell a trip to northern Italy once all this is over? Because I think that was a cluster. That was where they had the most deaths, in the northern part of Italy. So how could you sell that on a marketing scale?
It's a very good question. I do think Italy will take time to recover. I do think it'll probably take them longer to recover than most other destinations, to be fair. But no, people love Italy. No, people who have been there love that destination.
It's beautiful.
It will recover, and it's a beautiful place. No, but like Italy and like other destinations, no, if they focus a lot more on the domestic market, so they have things like Croatia and all these other places round about them. So that's the sort of focus that they need to be looking at, and focusing on those sort of destinations, trying to drum up business there. But it's not going to be easy, don't get me wrong. No, Italy will find it hard to pick this back up again. But like I say, people and just human beings in general have an appetite to travel. And if flights into Italy are reasonable and are relatively cheap, people will go back. People will want to go back and help rebuild those economies and just get out and travel and everything else. So it will take longer, but it will. I don't see no one ever visiting Italy again. It's too beautiful a country not to, and I think people will want to go back there again. It just may take that a little bit longer.
And do you think, Chris, that people will pretty much need to have evidence from Italy as a country, or any other country that was ravaged by COVID-19? Should they show some documentation or whatever they can show to the tourist or the traveller to say, right, we are clear of this to a point, but you've got to do this and that to make sure that, you have a great trip or something like that?
Yeah, no, I imagine there will be stipulations in place. I imagine there will be information out there so people can make informed decisions. But no, like I mentioned earlier, that the only real way for a lot of destinations, not just Italy, but for a lot of destinations to pick back up again quicker, is when the vaccine's in place. Once people have had the vaccine, they know it's going to be safer to travel then. That is when things will start picking up properly and start sort of growing quicker, is when that type of thing happens. So the sooner we have a vaccine, the sooner people will be less bothered about catching the virus or whatever that would be, because they've had the vaccine in place. So I think that needs to come before international travel in Italy or anywhere else really picks up again.
Have you heard of any news in regards to the vaccine and how long it will be until that's ready?
Oh, just what everyone else has really heard, to be honest. No, a vaccine, some people say they're trying to push it through within 12 months. No, it takes that time to test, it takes that time to do clinical trials, everything else. No, some people even say 18 months, but no, I would say I think it would be something they'll be pushing forward as quickly as they can. So I think they're already talking that they've managed to some of the stipulations and some of the red tape that these things have to go through have been stripped away just to make this go through quicker. So hopefully, and for everyone's sake, hopefully that within the next 12 months that will be in place, and then that will just start opening up the doors for a lot of people to start traveling again.
I think, I think you're right. I know Australia's working on a vaccine, and obviously I think America's working on a vaccine. I think America's also trying to beat everyone to it. It's like a bit of a race for them.
Yeah, and imagine it's the world as a whole, as I believe, from what you hear. Now, you just never know if these things are true, but from what I hear, the world as a whole is trying to come up with a vaccine. But maybe it's a cynic in me. Maybe I think with them, especially because of the way America is. If they come up with it first, they'll be able to charge the most for this vaccine at the end of the day. That's unfortunately the type of country they are. They're run by pharmaceutical companies and everything else. So because of the way their healthcare works. So it's I imagine whoever gets there first is going to be the one who basically pulls the purse strings and will be in charge of that vaccine.
And I wonder if the vaccine will only be affordable to certain people as well, to people with money, what happens to all the people that can't afford a vaccine and still want to travel? That'd be terrible.
Yeah, possibly. Again, it might be out there for free. We just don't know. It might be one of these things because it has been such a global scale. I would like to think that for most destinations, this will go out for free. In the UK, forgive me, I'm not too sure what it's like in Australia, but at least within the UK, we have the NHS. And in Scotland, actually, unlike England, in Scotland, all medicine is free. So if we get a prescription from the pharmacist or from the doctor, we don't pay anything for it. Everything is free. So
that's really good.
And that's Scotland is different from the rest of the UK. Our Scottish government's actually being, in that sort of sense, has been great. We don't pay for eye tests. We don't pay for prescriptions. All these other things as well. It's all part of what we pay in our taxes.
That's really good, Chris. I wish it was like that in Australia, but unfortunately, it's not. That's a good thing that Scotland has. Have they done that for a long time?
Yeah. It's been in place for a long time. I believe England has been looking at that side of things for a while. I don't believe it's in place yet. I know Scotland, to give you an idea, the whole of Scotland has 5 million people. There's more people in that in London alone. So, so it's although we're a big island or a big-ish part of the UK, we're very spread out in terms of that. There's lots of nature, lots of unused land, as it were. But it's been like that for a long, long time. The Scottish government's had that in place for as far back as I can remember, to be honest.
Okay. So, Chris, have you got any cruise boats docked in any of the ports in Scotland?
That's a good question. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think one of the main docks here is in, I always get them mixed up. It's either Greenock or Gourock. I have two places I call Greenock and Gourock. So I think cruises go into one of them. But if anything, they don't tend to be huge cruise ships, I don't believe. So they're not like the big beasts that you get. But we do have some. I imagine there's going to be one or two docked there. To be fair. But it's It's not a part of the industry I'm completely familiar with, to be honest. So I know it's one of those two places that they tend to dock in.
No, that's fair enough, Chris. Now, have you heard about all the cruise ships that are currently just sitting in the middle of the ocean, not being able to move, with thousands of people on board, staff and patrons? I looked at a graph earlier. It's crazy.
Oh, it is, and I have to admit, I'll put my hands up and say that being stuck on a cruise ship does not fill me with joy. Me and boats don't tend to get on quite well. I do tend to get quite seasick a lot. So it's usually one of the things I would probably stay away from. Just from a personal note, when I go out, I like to go out on city tours, see the history, see the art of a place. No, I like nature as well. Go out and do things like that. Being stuck in the one place all the time, more like a theme park type idea, does not sort of fill me with joy, to be honest. No, don't get me wrong. I can't wait to take my kids off to Disney World to go to the Star Wars part of Disney World. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so
wow, that'd be cool.
I want to go and see that. Yeah, I definitely want to go and see that. But the thought of spending anything more than 3 days in a place like that fills me with dread. I'd rather be out and explore at my own pace and everything else. So yeah, even as much as I am a Star Wars fan, 3 days would be enough there. Then I have to go back out again.
That's fair enough. I want to do that Star Wars thing. I think is it Disney World or Disneyland? The Star Wars theme park area.
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is. I know it's the main one in Orlando, but I can't remember which part of it.
Oh, Disney World.
Disney World, yeah, it must be that one then. Yeah,
I think it's Disney World. Yeah. And so you wouldn't go on the Disney Princess or whatever it's called. How Disney's got a boat, a cruise liner.
Yeah. I would no.
No.
Don't get me wrong. I have been on boats. I just it takes me as long as I take some medicine to ease my stomach, I should be okay. But it's just the thought of being confined, and I'm not claustrophobic either, to be honest. But just the thought of being confined and you're basically going to the same places, the same restaurants, the same everything all the time. It's not what I would call it's not my idea of a good trip. So.
Plus, when they drop you off at, say, the island Vanuatu, wherever you are, Noumea, or if you're in the Caribbean, I think you've only got 6 to 8 hours to walk around and enjoy the town, and then you're ushered back on board for more festivities and fun.
Yeah.
I'm not a cruiser guy either, Chris. So yeah, so it doesn't matter for me. Hey, how would you entice or sell or market people to go cruising again once once COVID has settled down or coronavirus has settled down in a year or whatever it is? Because I feel that every person that's stuck on a cruise liner at the moment is not going to ever cruise again. So they've lost thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
They will need to build back up trust in the brand. The thing about the type of customer who goes on cruises, they are very loyal to those cruise lines or very loyal to that type of product. Or they tend to be anyway, because it tends to be usually an older demographic. They like to go on their one time a year cruise with their retirement money or whatever, and their pensions. So they like doing that. They like the fact of sitting on a cruise ship, putting their feet up, having everyone do everything for them, all drinks and food paid for. Going to the little, spending time in the pool or going to the quiz nights or the dance halls or whatever it's on these cruise ships. The older generation love that type of thing, and they're very, very loyal. Yeah. So I think it will be impacted for the short term, but in the long term, they will just come back in their droves. They will flood back to it again, just because they like it. Yes, the ones who are stuck on cruise ships will be harder pushed to be persuaded to do that again, especially if they've lost money, etc. But at the end of the day, this has been such an unprecedented situation. It's not really of the cruise ships making. This is just what's happened in the world. So they will recover again. True. They just need to. It depends on how they market it, etc. But those type of customers tend to be very loyal, and they will come back again.
Yeah. I don't think I'll ever cruise. after all this. But I was never a cruise guy anyway. I know my parents love cruising. They've done 4 or 5 cruises. But my dad just talks about how, it's just older people that go cruising. Well, there's probably a small amount of younger folk, and every time he's been on a cruise, he's seen someone draped in a cotton sheet. So he talks about people dying on cruises. I'm like, but he's a funny guy though, my dad. He likes to have a bit of a joke, but yeah, he just always tells me about how he saw someone on the cruise that looks like they're half dead. It's like this is where they go to die nearly. It's their last holiday.
Yeah, that's unfortunately it's because of the age groups it is. No, you're going to get more of that type of thing happening, unfortunately. So it doesn't. Like I say, I don't see me ever being on a cruise.
That is fair enough, bud. And so, what are some of the positives in the travel industry that may come out of COVID-19? I can think of one, maybe the environmental impact, and maybe some of the tourist sites that were really famous, like the Venice canals or places like that. Some of the World Heritage sites, maybe they'll recover from too many tourists or what's that? Over tourism? No, that's not the term. I forgot the term. But yeah, do you think that's positive to come out of COVID-19?
Over tourism, no, that's probably it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. No, I think if anything, when you look at the canals in Venice being clean again, and fish actually going back into it again. You've got places in India at the moment where it's usually just full of smog. They've got clear skies for the first time in many, many years. Yeah, if anything, I'm hoping. People need to travel. Travel will pick back up again, but I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit more responsibility in terms of how people travel and how destinations fill their cities and fill their own countries. It does need to reduce just to help save the planet. But it's what's happening in the world just now in terms of the sustainability side of it and the environment is incredible. People are actually being able to hear birds singing again, which they haven't been able to hear for a long time because of either traffic or noise or whatever. It's just little things like that. But in terms of positive stories, what I love seeing, because I normally deal with a lot of tour operators. For me, the tour operators and activity providers are the absolute backbone of any destination or of any travel. Yes, people will book up flights, they will book up hotels, but ultimately it's what people can do in those destinations is what drives them there. So so that's why for me it's absolute spine. Tours and activities is absolute spine of travel. So what I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of these operators pivoting their business to try and survive what's happening just now, creating new opportunities, creating new partnerships, finding new ways to generate new products for domestic markets, for other types of things. Some people are obviously looking at virtual tours. I have my own thoughts on that. I don't see that being a long-term solution or a solution at all, to be honest. For example, virtual tours is a good thing to maybe make an extra few bucks here and there, but ultimately, it's more just for like content. A virtual tour or something like that is nothing more than a mini documentary or a mini piece of content on video, and that should be there to help drive people eventually to your destination, to raise brand awareness about what you do and your destination. That's what ultimately virtual tours will come into it. No, don't get me wrong. One company or a couple of big companies will probably make a decent living out of doing virtual tours, but for most tour operators who have limited resources, it's not something I would concentrate on just now. But I am seeing a lot of positive stories in terms of what people are doing. In terms of there's even if it's not within their own industry, there's a taxi tour company here in the UK down in London who usually run taxi tours, so take people from international visitors around London, seeing the sights, etc., all within the traditional black taxi that you see in London. But what they're doing now is they're taking doctors, nurses, going around homeless people, making sure they're fine, taking them to hostels. Though even if it's not something that's in their own sphere of normal day-to-day activity and within their own product, they're still trying to help the local community as a whole. So seeing inspiring stories like this, it's incredible how people are trying to help others, and hopefully, without sounding like a Michael Jackson song or something like that, I'm hoping that with everything that's going on just now, it's going to make the world and make everyone make it just a slightly better place than it was before COVID hit, and make us all a little bit more focused on what other people think and how we can help other people in other destinations in general, and just make the world a better place. Again, without sounding like a Michael Jackson song.
That's very well said. And Michael Jackson sure did try and make the world a better place for a lot of people with his music. I read something the other day about the president, I think it was Czech Republic, possibly closing the doors of his country to tourists for a whole year. Have you read anything about that?
I've heard of it. I don't know if it's true, but I have heard other destinations looking at that as well. No, I believe there was a few weeks back, there was the EU, someone in the EU, and the government levels was basically saying, travelling within the EU might not happen properly for a year anyway. They might still have to close down borders and everything else for international customers. So I can see some destinations, including Australia, have made rumours of that as well, that some destinations will close their borders for 12 months, or at least until there's a vaccine in place. So that it will happen for some destinations, I'm sure.
Well, we're only slowly easing back some of our restrictions. Like, for instance, now I can have 5 guests over to my house, but they must only be family or friends. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. But we still have to obviously keep our distance with social... I was about to say, social distancing, yeah. So, we'll see what happens in the future, I guess. But I was also going to ask you a question about your time in Japan and how marketing led you to stay there a bit longer.
Yeah, so I've always loved Japan ever since I've been a kid. My father used to be an avid book collector in terms of history books, etc. And it used to be, I don't know if you had it over there, but it used to be subscribed to something called Reader's Digest, and they set you out a bunch of books every month or whatever it would be, and you decided which ones you wanted to keep and send them back. So this was long before Amazon, etc. existed. So my father had a book, and I was asked to do a history project for school, and I didn't want to do what everyone else in the school was doing. They were talking about World War I or II or Vietnam War or something like that. So I wanted to do something different. So I picked a book off the shelf, and it happened to be all about history of the samurai, history about Japan, and that's what got me into my love of Japan. So about 15 years ago, me and my wife decided we wanted to start a family. So before we did, we thought, let's go out one big sort of holiday before that happens. So we both decided, it was a toss-up between Canada. My wife really wanted to go to Canada, and I wanted to go to Japan. And we all decided, okay, between my wife and myself and my best friend who went with us as well, we decided to go to Japan. So we were looking, as anyone does, we were searching Google at the time, seeing what was available. And we came across one company called Inside Japan Tours. They had some really, really good video content online. And this was, again, 15 years ago, so they were well ahead of the curve in terms of YouTube channel, in terms of producing lots of video about their destination, about the products that they had, etc. But there was one video that came across we just loved, and we thought, okay, this is a company that we want to use. And when we phoned up that company, they spoke us through the products that we wanted to take, and they says, well, would you like to do this, this, and this? And we thought, can we do that? And they says, yes, you can. And we're like, and one of those things was to climb to the top of Mount Fuji to see the sunrise. And we thought, well, we're not fit enough. We can't do that. And they says, no, you can. It takes you about a day and a half. You just easily walk up the paths and etc. We're like, okay, let's do that. So we extended we were going to go for 2 weeks. And because of that one piece of video content and obviously speaking to them on the phone, we extended our stay from 2 weeks to a month. So we travelled around more of Japan. We saw more of Japan. We got to the top of Mount Fuji, saw the sunrise. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. It's something I'll never, ever forget. It was hard, don't get me wrong, but it was being able to have that. To say that you've done that achievement is incredible. We saw lots more of Japan that we never thought dreamed of, and we'd want to go back. So that was initially all off the back of one video, which was from the perspective of a tour guide, giving his why he loved Japan, why he loved doing what he does, etc. And it's one of the reasons why I say when you produce video content, your tour guide should be the best people to present that content, because they have that passion. They're doing this day in, day out with your customers. So use them and use their skill sets for video content as well. So since then, we want to go back once our kids are a little older. We have referred that business on to countless others. We still talk about it today. And the thing is, even from that one video, one of the guys was called Tyler Palmer, who happened to be our tour guide. We're still friends with him on Facebook. He started his own family. We've already said, 15 years down the line, when we go back, we want him to be our tour guide still. So not that one video allowed us to take tours out with that company, stay longer, see more of Japan, do things we never thought possible, refer them on. So they have made more money out of us because of the referrals that we've passed on. And we want to go back so they will get repeat business from us further down the line. So that was all off the back of one piece of video marketing. That's how powerful
amazing
marketing can be. That's how powerful video marketing can be. So Japan was a beautiful place. So anyone who's never been, Japan is such a beautiful country, such beautiful people as well. They want to help you whatever way they can. It's just an amazing place to be in. So.
Yeah, I was in Japan in 2014 and I loved it. I just thought it was the most interesting place I've ever set foot on. It was unbelievable. Just leaving the airport and getting picked up by a taxi guy. He wasn't a taxi, but we had arranged to get a fellow to pick us up by our Airbnb guy. And the fella and the Japanese guy couldn't speak anything. He couldn't speak in general. He couldn't speak English, couldn't speak Japanese. I think he was a mute. So all my Airbnb guy said is that you'll see your name and just get in the car and he'll take you to where I am at the Airbnb and I'll be waiting for you. But this car was so futuristic, doors would open itself, and this was 2014, and I thought, where have I landed? I've landed in the most magical, interesting country in the world. It was just unbelievable.
It's incredible. I love the advanced technology side of it, and then offshooting that, you turn around the corner, there's a traditional temple or shrine or whatever it be. My favourite place was Kyoto, and one of the because it was more of a traditional side, which I love, and one of the things that that tour company did for us was we managed to sit and be in the company of a real life geisha. So we're sitting there chatting to her. She was making us tea, doing all these other things as well. So again, climbing Mount Fuji, seeing a real life geisha, you can't get anything better than that. It was incredible, and that company again helped organise all that as well. So it was such a beautiful place, an amazing country, and I definitely want to go back again.
Geez, that sounds like quintessential Japan.
Yeah, it certainly was.
Did you do the gardens in Kyoto?
Yes. I think it was pretty much not everywhere we went. We did the gardens, did all the usual shrines and temples and castles, and Himeji Castle was amazing to see as well. And even going all the way down to Hiroshima just to sort of see there. In fact, that was another experience. So I'm probably digressing here slightly, but that was another experience I'll never forget. Was going down to Hiroshima. We're doing the usual thing, walking around, seeing. It was very obviously looking at the museums, etc. Was very somber, etc. Seeing what happened there. But then, as we're walking around that sort of one, I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but the building is standing in the middle of Hiroshima where the bomb hit. It's still there. This little old lady, Japanese lady, came up to us, and she just started talking to us out of our own back. Just started talking to us, telling us about the history, telling us about what actually happened on the day. She was actually there when the bomb hit. And so she was actually telling us about her experience, and she just did this for free, just came up to us, just talked to us about it, talked to us about the history. I think they have these people around the city who were actually there, just going up to people to tell their story, to just raise awareness of what happened and everything else. And just hearing her story was absolutely incredible. Again, there's so many things that happened on that tour that I will never forget. And that was another highlight as well, another one of them.
That is so interesting. That would have been amazing, hearing it from a local that was there when the bomb went off. Unbelievable, Chris. That's awesome. Okay, I will ask you some final questions now.
No problem.
So there's 4 interesting final questions for you. So if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you like to be?
I think I've answered that one. It'd probably have to be back to Japan.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. It would certainly be Japan. There's still plenty of Japan I have not seen. I never went far south as Nagasaki or anything like that, so it would probably be.
Oh, okay.
We stayed sort of north to middle of it. We stayed north to the middle of the island. So the furthest south we went to was Hiroshima and Matsuyama. So we want to go further south. So that's where we want to do next time is do a tour, sort of southern parts of Japan.
You got to go down to the hot springs in Yufuin. That was unbelievable around there. I loved Yufuin.
Excellent.
And that's
I'll add that to the list.
Last island. Yeah, add that to the list. Excellent. Definitely. Yufuin as a little town to just stay in for about 3 nights. You will love it, Chris. Also, what would you be eating or drinking if you're in Japan?
Japan, yeah, I do love sushi and things like that. Although I have to admit, I ate so much sushi in Japan, I couldn't eat sushi for about four weeks or at least 4 months rather after it. So I think I sushied myself out when I was over there.
You sushied out.
But no, I sushied out. So I don't get it. I love sushi. I love Japanese food. I love Asian food in general, to be honest. So, but in terms of drink, I would probably say if it was alcohol drink, my favourite is rum. I like a good Havana rum or something like that. So rum is my favourite drink. So that's probably what I would have.
So actually, well, I had some amazing whiskies when I was in Kyoto. I was going to mention to you, and I got very heavily drunk there. And it was in a little laneway at a little bar that sat no more than 6 to 8 people. And myself, my friend, and my wife, all 3 of us were very jolly that night.
Yeah,
very jolly.
Oh, they have some good whiskey. Don't get me wrong. I do. Being from Scotland, I like my whiskey. So Japan have some very good whiskies. Yeah, Japan have some very good whiskies. Yeah.
Jeez, I'll have to get some whiskey recommendations from you for good Scottish whiskey.
Happy to give you some.
Thank you, sir. Also, what's your favourite country and city?
Oh, I don't want to fall back to Japan again, to be honest, so I'll say something different.
Look, if it's Japan, it's Japan. That's fine.
Well, I would say I've got two. Country, Japan for sure. Favourite city was Kyoto. Although I love Barcelona. Barcelona is one of my favourite destinations to go to. I love my time there. I've been there once with the family. I want to go back and spend more time sort of travelling around there and doing more of the sites, etc. It was just a lovely place to be in, lovely food. I just loved Barcelona. It was such a great place. But I also I have a fondness for Madeira. My father is actually from Madeira. He was Portuguese, so he was born in Madeira. So I've got family over there. So Madeira is another place that's sort of close to my heart. I like. It's not a place to go to for anything exciting. It's quite a laid back retirement sort of home type island, but it's certainly a beautiful place. You do lots of good walks there, and there's lots of good sights, and if you climb the mountains, etc., there and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful place to be in as well. So nice. that would probably be another one on my list. So yeah.
Do you speak Portuguese, Chris?
Very, very little. Unfortunately, I used to speak quite a lot apparently when I was younger, but I lost a lot of that. I'm trying to learn again. Unfortunately, my father passed away about 20 years ago. So if anything, I was hoping to learn and then speak to him in Portuguese to learn quick. I'm one of these people that have to be learning it and speaking it often. If I have no one to bounce that off of, it my head makes room for other things and puts that to the wayside, to be honest. So yeah, it's something I want to try and learn. The scary thing is I actually speak slightly more Japanese than I do Portuguese, so that just shows you, which is scary. But there we go.
There you go. You got a massive love for Japan, that's why.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your Japanese or Portuguese with a Scottish accent. I reckon that would be really cool.
To be honest, the good thing about Portuguese, it's quite a guttural language. So and Scottish
like
people
Scottish.
have that sort of Scottish people have that sort of rough guttural type accent as well. So it's actually you fall into it quite easily. To be honest, so.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, Chris, we got a final question to go now, pal. So, what country or city or both have surprised you the most?
Oh, that is a good question. I have to say, I would probably say it was Barcelona. I always wanted to see Barcelona. I never thought I would fall in love with it as much as I did. I thought it was just going to be. I think because of my father came from Portugal and because of the reputation that Spain has, for example, in terms of UK tourists going across and the sort of bad connotations that can have as well with the various areas that are purely just. I'm not one for going to destination countries where it is literally 90% of the same people who you live with day in, day out, pretty much anyway from your same country. I don't see the point of that, to be fair. So I just thought, Barcelona would be the same, but it wasn't. It was very cosmopolitan and it was very different, and it really surprised me how much I loved it and how much I felt. I loved the food, I loved the people, I loved the culture, etc. So yeah, Barcelona was very surprising. Even my wife's an architect, so we visited a lot of the Gaudi buildings and architectural things as well, and it was just amazing to see. Amazing to see. So yeah, so it was. It really surprised me how much I actually loved Barcelona.
I'm surprised that the building's still not finished. That cathedral, still going.
Yeah, it's had fires in the past, and it's getting rebuilt and everything else.
What is it called? La Grada Familia.
Yeah. It's still being built, so still scaffolding up it. So
yeah, it's going to be years before that's finished.
Yeah, they say possibly another 180 years or something like that before they properly finish it. So, or maybe longer. I have no idea. So, yeah, but it's a beautiful. When you go inside it, it's absolutely stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I've never been to Barcelona, so I've got to put that on my list of places to go to, and also Portugal.
Good food, good place. No, when you walk down, when you walk down La Rambla, that's a sort of main street. There's lots of little off streets to that where you get nice little places to eat. They've got lovely markets where you can go in, walk around the market with a glass of wine, or try different foods from different stalls. All these other things. I love that. It's really good. It's really, really nice. Yeah, really nice.
Don't get me started with wine, Chris. I feel like a glass now.
Well, it's 10 a.m. for me here, so I love my red wine, etc. as well. So it's a little bit too early for me, even though I'm Scottish. It's still a little bit too early for me here.
It's probably not too early though for a glass of scotch for you, Chris, considering you are Scottish.
Oh well, yeah. It's yeah. I have been known to have a glass of scotch early in the morning when I've been at an airport or something like that. You're sort of, when you're usually in an airport when you're flying out anywhere, it's like there is no time. It's just when you get there, you feel like having a drink.
So that's the best thing about traveling, actually, listener, is it doesn't matter what time you're at the airport, you can still crack open a beer or have a scotch at the airport paddies or whatever they're called, the old Irish bar or whatever it is. I know there's an Irish bar at Melbourne Airport. Yeah, there's always an Irish bar at an airport. So you have your 8 a.m. beer or 6 a.m. whiskey. It's fine. You're on a holiday.
Yeah. No one bats an eyelid. So
no one bats an eyelid. Chris, I've had such a great chat. Thanks so much for coming on, pal.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No worries. Thank you. Ben from the future, guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to ask Chris all his details about how you, listener, can contact him. Now, if you want to follow Chris, you can go to tourismmarketing.agency. That's the tourism marketing agency website. Chris's email is chris@tourismmarketing.agency. Digital Tourism Show is also something that Chris is involved with, and that's on YouTube. That's youtube.com//C/Digital Tour Show. The Digital Tourism Show has a podcast as well on audioboom.com/channels 4990262. They also have a Facebook group. /Digital Tourism Show on Facebook. So just look that up. Digital Tourism Show also has a page, and that's a tourism marketing agency. Well, that's actually part of the tourism marketing agency. Chris is also on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Torres Chris. TMA, which is a tourism marketing agency, is also on Twitter at TTM_agency, and they're also on Instagram /tourism marketing agency. So Instagram.com /tourism marketing agency. And I'm also on a bunch of stuff. So you can follow me on iTunes, Spotify. You can look at my feed on Libsyn, on Facebook, Travelman Podcast, Instagram, Travelman Podcast, Twitter, Travelman Pod. I'm in TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, travelmanpodcast.com, and email me, travelmanpodcast@gmail.com. And thanks again for listening. Before you go, bud, what's one really good whiskey that I should try from Scotland? And I'll go and buy it tomorrow. They'll let you know somehow. Yeah, I'm a cube guy as well. I've got ice cubes ready to go in the freezer any time of the year, or whenever I've got a guest over, they know, all right, Ben's got the ice cube ready. Considering how Italy was so... Oh, well, let me rephrase it.